As the seasons change and the days grow warmer, there's no better time to refresh your space with new pretty spring-inspired decor. Embrace the light and airy essence of spring by incorporating pastels, floral accents, and natural textures that bring a sense of renewal and vibrancy to your home. These simple updates can transform your space into a cheerful sanctuary with a fresh, stylish touch. Hey there, my name is Sandra and you're watching The Schwowin's Nest. I've had this basket for about 20 years and I thought it was time for a refresh because I wasn't really using it. It was in my storage room. I've decided to take it from a bleached look to just solid white. So I'm giving it one really good coat of my white chalk paint. I'm not going to be too fussy about getting in all the nooks and crannies. I just want this to have an overall more white look. For the inside, I'm just going to go down probably 2 or 3 inches because where I'm going to be putting this, you won't even see that part. This is a great way to just freshen up some of the decor that you already have in your home. A coat of paint can do wonders. To make painting really easy, I'm using my Stylmeester pointed sash brush, and I have these all listed in my Amazon store. They're my most favorite brushes to use because not only do they make painting so much easier, you don't get a lot of brush strokes when you're painting on something flat, and they're super easy to clean. I'll be showing you all of the looks of my projects today at the very end, so make sure you stay tuned to see how all of it works together to create a beautiful, fresh spring space. Check out this cute little mini washboard. It was mostly for decorative purposes because it has this little wooden box on the front of it, but I could not pass this up when I saw it at the thrift store. It was going to be so much fun to turn this into a vintage look. I'm not going to be using the little wood box on this, and luckily it was just held together with 4 screws at the back. Super easy to take apart. To create a vintage look, I'm using some light gray chalk paint and I've added a little bit of my burnt umber stain that I normally use. I want this to be a little more watered down, and I will be adding a little bit more water to it as well as a few squirts of black acrylic paint just to give it more of a sort of fence board weathered look. It's a watered down stain that I'm going to be applying just to the wood parts and then wiping it back with a paper towel. This wood was raw. It didn't have any type of coating on it, and it really sucked the stain in quickly. So I had to work in sections to make sure I got the color that I wanted and it didn't end up looking too dark. You can still see the wood grain through it. To give the washboard even more of a vintage look, I'm using one of IOD's crockery stamps and some black ink, and I'm just going to place that right in the center on the front. I know the design and the words on the stamp don't really match a washing board, but I love how it turned out. Next, I'm taking a little chip brush and some brown antiquing wax, and I'm dry brushing over the washboard just on the wood portions, and then I'm going to wipe it back with a paper towel as well, just to give this even more of a rustic look. When you look at something old, it's usually got a lot of dirt or grunge in the corners and in the seams. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just adding a little bit more of the brown antiquing wax into the corners where I think it would have collected a little bit of dirt. I'm going to do the same thing in the corners of the washboard because, again, that's where all the dirt and the rust is going to collect. I'm using a smaller brush to do that. And then I'm going to add a few more spots within the washboard to make it look not so brand new. While the antiquing wax is still wet, I'm going to grab my cinnamon and sprinkle some in all of the corners and then shake off the excess. This really gives the look of textured rust. Lavender is one of my most favorite florals, and I know it's more of a summer thing, but I just love having it throughout my home all year round. I'm just using this printable. Now, I got this off of Creative Fabrica, and I will have the link for you down in my description box. It's an assortment of, I think you get 6 or 7 of these vintage lavender photos, and you can just do whatever you want with them. I love Creative Fabrica. It gives me so many great ideas. I get all of my printables there and it's super inexpensive. So if you're interested, I'll have a link to the actual Creative Fabrica site as well so you can go check it out for yourself. Using a glue stick, I'm just putting it onto this other print that was in this frame, and it's just a white backing, and it's a perfect match for what I want to do. Now, all I have to do is put it back in the frame. This is just a piece of plaqueboard. It did have an emblem on it. You can kind of see the darker lines. I'm just going to give it a couple of rough coats of white chalk paint. I created this other printable piece from another Creative Fabrica floral arrangement, which are these eucalyptus leaves. They're so pretty. And I just turned it into a botanical and printed it off on regular printer paper. To make the paper look more rustic, I'm just using a ruler and I'm tearing it instead of cutting it. Before I glue the paper onto the plaque, I'm using an ink pad and just going around the edges, giving it a little bit of a distressed look. I decided to just go around the edges first. I really like that look. And then I started kind of going onto the paper a little bit more. I started off in the corners and then I ended up actually just stamping a little bit of the ink all over the page. It gave it a really neat look and texture. You don't have to do any distressing if that's not your cup of tea, but I really love the distressing and making things look older than they really are. And just using creativity and whatever happens to flow from my brain to my hand. And if I don't like it, it's super easy to just reprint it again or repaint it and just fix it up until I do like it. I used a glue stick to apply it to the plaque, and then I took the ink pad and distressed the plaque too. I rubbed the ink pad on all of the edges and in the corners, and wherever the ink hit, that's where it was going to stay. There was no rhyme or reason to this technique. I just started going at it, and before you know it, I was inking the whole thing. This is the cabinet that I'm going to be making over today. I have 2 of these. They're a pair that are in my bedroom. One is mine, one is for my hubby, and we've had these forever, ever since we got married. We got married in the 90s, and that's when all this pickled pine and bleached oak was really popular. And I loved it at the time. I still kind of love it now, but I'm just ready for a change. And I thought, spring's just around the corner. Let's get it done. I'm using Crud Cutter Gloss Off and a sponge just to clean this really well and to make sure that I have all of the grease and grunge and anything that would prevent my glaze to stick. I love using this product on my furniture makeovers and any type of wood that needs a good cleaning because it also takes some of the gloss off, which is something that is awesome for me because when I have something on the inside of my home and I don't have the ability to go outside yet, we do still have snow on the ground here in Ontario, then I don't have to worry about sanding it. This particular crud cutter is a no rinse formula, and I love that. So all I have to do is just wipe off the excess with a clean towel. I clean these units all the time. They get dusted, they get wiped down, but look at all the dirt and scuzz that's still coming off of these. I just love Crud Cutter for a really nice clean. I've taken the knobs off because I'm going to be replacing them with something different, and I'm going to need to fill these holes. What I like to do is put a piece of masking tape or painter's tape on the back of the hole and then use my Drydex pink to white spackling to fill in the hole. So let's start applying the new color. This is a combination of dark brown, a little bit of black. I think there's a bit of gray in here too, and a whole bunch of Mod Podge. This is how I made the glaze for this, and I'm using a large chalk paint brush to give me some texture and some brush strokes. I want this to have a really vintage kind of, I don't know how to describe it. I want it to look like wood. I want it to be a little bit brown and hide some of this pink color. I don't know what you would call this, but I really love how it turned out. Now, with the Mod Podge, you have to work a little bit quicker. I would probably next time use a little bit more water in my Mod Podge just so I have a little bit more dry time, but it did turn out nicely. You'll have to let me know what you think of this technique and if it would be something that you might try on a piece of furniture too. To get a nice, even, smooth look, even though I want it to have a lot of texture, I went with the brush all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom, just in one even stroke to clean all of my brush marks off. When I got to the front of the armoire, I switched over to a smaller brush because I had smaller sections to work with. And I didn't want my big brush to just get all over the hardware. And I didn't want to put it on the door by accident because I would not have enough working time with my Mod Podge glaze to be able to get the right brush strokes. I found that working in small sections really helped to get this effect done right. Another thing to remember when you're doing a technique like this is you want to follow the direction of the original wood grain. So for the sides and the little front pieces, I went up and down, but now I'm going side to side horizontally because that's how the wood grain's going. And again, I'm using my smaller brush because that's just helping me get the right look with not too much overspill onto the other sections. I'm not going to make you watch me do this whole armoire. We're going to get into the fun part, which is styling all of the items that I made over for this project. Here's the white basket. I love how fresh and bright it looks. You can see a little bit of the original color on the inside, and I just am amazed. Just a little bit of paint. Who would have thought? I'm taking a tea towel and I'm just going to be arranging it in such a way that it hangs over really nicely on the edge of the basket. Then I'm going to add some things into the basket. And the first thing I'm going to be adding is this white pitcher that I put some eucalyptus into. This is just a really pretty pitcher. It does have some decor on the other side of it, so I'm just going to be putting it this way so you don't see the design. Next, I'm adding a black book, and I love the old look of the pages on this book, but I also wanted to bring in a little bit of a deeper color so it would add a little bit more depth. Now I'm just going to be adding some odds and ends. I've got some spindles, I've got a keg spout, I'm going to put a white ceramic milk bottle in and some additional florals, and I'm just going to play around with it until I get it looking the way I like. Now let's take a look at all of the DIYs I did for this project. I took all of my DIYs for this video and a few others that I had done in previous videos, put everything together as a beautiful spring vignette on the top of my armoire. I just really adore how all of this turned out. It took me a while to figure out how to style it to make it look really pretty. I'm happy with the results, and I hope you love it too. And yes, I did not do the top of my armoire because me taking these pictures, I had to stand up on a chair to get them. So no one else but me is going to be seeing the top. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun creating this beautiful spring vignette on the top of my cabinet. I also really had a great time making over the cabinet, and I hope you love it. It looks a little different, but I just love the texture of it and the color of it and how it turned out. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I'll see you in the next one.